Hi, I'm Dr. Philippa Lally and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Surrey, and today I'm going to be covering habits and health. The learning objective of this video is that by the end you will understand the psychological definition of habits, how they guide behaviour, and have an idea about strategies that can be employed to change those habits. In daily life, we often hear the word habit used, and what people usually mean are just things that we do often. However, not all things that we do often are habitual, as we define that as psychologists. So the definition of psychologists is that habit is a process. So when you do something repeatedly in the same situation, you learn an association between that situation and the action. And this association gets stronger and stronger over each repetition. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. This then means that when you encounter the situation again, that mental association is activated in your memory and it leads to an impulse to act in the same way again. That impulse isn't a conscious impulse, but it's there nonetheless. This then leads to the habitual behaviour being enacted unless something stops us from doing so. More on that again in a minute. So most of the time we are busy doing a lot of things, we have a lot going on in our lives, and our habits just continue guiding our behaviour without us even thinking about them. This is really useful because it would be exhausting to have to deliberate about every single action you take in your daily life. However, sometimes we have habits for things that we don't want to be habitual. So it's thought that around half of our daily actions are guided by habits, and that's why habits are important for health. So most health behaviours that put us at risk of or are protective against non-communicable diseases are those behaviours that are repeated, where one occasion of doing the behaviour or not doing it doesn't have a huge impact on our health outcomes, but repetition of those behaviours over time can have a big impact. And this is why habits are important, because many of these behaviours are habitual. For example, smoking, eating behaviours, physical activity, sitting down or not sitting down, taking medication are all behaviours that we often perform habitually. So as I said, habits form when we repeat a behaviour in the same situation. They often form without us even meaning to form them. We just do something once, it works, we do it again, and over time that habit forms. The curve on the right here shows how habit strength, or in other words, the automaticity with which we perform the behaviour, increases with each repetition. So initially, every time we perform the behaviour, we get a big increase in that automaticity, but over time, each subsequent repetition results in a smaller increase until we reach a plateau. So at this point, it doesn't matter how many more times we do it, we've reached our limit, it is as automatic as it is going to get. And we consider this point to be the point at which that habit has formed. How long it takes to reach that plateau is really variable. So there is no nice, neat answer to the question, how long does it take to form a habit? But the average is often at least a couple of months for a daily habit. Now, obviously, that's different if we're talking about something that happens more or less frequently. But for a daily habit, it seems to be the average is around a couple of months. So in order to intentionally form a habit for a behavior we want to become habitual, we want to start doing automatically, for example, if you wanted to take medication every day, we first have to choose what's going to be our habit cue. We have to choose the situation in which we're going to act. The cue can be a range of things, but a situation that's really salient, that really stands out and isn't already associated with a lot of other actions is likely to be a good cue. For example, after breakfast might be a good cue for taking a once-a-day medication. You then need to remember to do this every time in that situation until it becomes a habit. So it does require continuous effort during that habit forming time. So monitoring daily can be really important to help check whether you have successfully taken that medication. And then if you haven't, put other things in place to help remember next time. So this flowchart on the left highlights that process, that you have to decide to act, then regulate your actions, so that that repetition in the same situation happens, and then that habit is formed. Breaking habits is more complicated than making habits. We can't really break a habit because we can't get in people's brains and change that mental association. But here are 4 strategies that we can use to disrupt a habit and try to prevent it leading to that habitual behaviour. The first step for all of these is that we have to know what the cue is. We need to know what is cueing that behaviour. This can be easy for some people and difficult for other behaviours for other people. One thing that can really help is keeping a diary to note what has happened before that behaviour happens over time. Then once you know what the cue is, the easiest way to disrupt that is to avoid that cue. So this has been termed habit cue discontinuity, but that just means avoid the cue if you can. But it's often very difficult to avoid our cues. They're often things that are in our lives all the time, and that's not an option. The next thing you could try is trying to make the behaviour more difficult in that same situation. So, for example, if someone has a habit of eating chocolate when they watch TV, if they can remove all the chocolate from their house, then they can't eat chocolate when they watch TV. And so that will have stopped that habit leading to the behaviour. The hardest way to disrupt a habit is to willfully inhibit it. So using the same example, if I am paying enough attention and I'm monitoring what's going on in my life and I really want to stop eating chocolate, then in the moment when I sit down to watch TV, even if the chocolate is right there, I can stop myself from doing it. But it requires me to vigilantly monitor, so I notice when the cue happens, and it requires me to stop myself in the moment, which are very difficult things for people to do. So an alternative is to try habit substitution, because it is easier to do something than to do nothing. So if I want to disrupt a habit of eating chocolate in the evening when I sit down to watch TV, I could replace this with a new habit. I would still have to inhibit the previous habit and choose something different, but over time with repetition, this new association may become stronger than the original one and therefore help me to form a new, healthier habit. One important thing to consider, though, is the role of rewards. So it's thought that the more rewarding a behaviour is in the moment you perform it, the stronger the impact of each repetition on habit strength. So that curve should go up quicker. Therefore, if you want to form a habit, choose a behaviour that you enjoy doing. So if you want to improve your fitness and you hate running, then don't choose running. Try and find an exercise that you enjoy doing. Or if the behavior you want to do just is something that you can't make rewarding in itself, you could try pairing it with something that is rewarding. So take your medication with a drink you enjoy, or go for a brisk walk to increase your activity with a friend you enjoy chatting with. But try to make it as fun as you can in the moment, and that should help you form the habit. In the same way, if you're trying to substitute one habit with another, don't try to substitute a behavior you find really rewarding with one you really don't enjoy, because you're very unlikely to be able to choose to do that in the moment, and it's going to be harder for that new one to become automatic. So try to choose a new, if it's a food, try to choose a different, healthier food that you do enjoy eating, or try to switch it from something that's not food at all, something different. So the key takeaways from this talk are that forming healthy habits is a good way to support maintenance of health behaviours over time. It can take a while to form a new habit, so it's important to stay focused on the behaviour, but it will make it much easier once it does become that habit. You can't break a habit, but you can disrupt it so that it doesn't lead to that behaviour. To do that, if you can avoid the cue, or you can make the behaviour more difficult or even impossible in that situation, or you can substitute the habitual behaviour with an alternative. And these are the references that I have used in this talk. Thank you.